All right, if you've been to like at least one wedding or church like maybe twice, I can guarantee you've probably heard what I'm about to say. For this reason, a man shall leave his mother and father and cleave or be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. We hear that all the time, and like a lot of biblical quotes and sayings, that sounds great. It really does. But what the heck does it mean? And is there actually any practical application that we should be doing in our marriages based on that passage? I have the answer for that today, and I want to give you 4 keys to marital harmony based on this passage. That's today on Relationshots. Welcome to Relationshots. My name's Eric Wooten. If this is your first time hanging out with us, welcome to the place to get practical relationship advice that actually works in your relationship. If you've not already done so, go ahead and click the subscribe button and the bell notification so you don't miss upcoming videos. And if you want a free guide to intimacy, hit the link below. You'll also find lots of links for resources, books, courses, classes that can help you grow in your relationship. So let's talk about this cute little churchy biblical quote, leave and cleave. What exactly does it mean? Is there any practical application for our relationships? Before we jump into it, let me give you the context from which it comes. It's in the book of Genesis, very second chapter. God has created the earth. He's created man. Then it says he puts man to sleep, takes a rib from the man, fashions woman, then now brings the woman to the man and presents the woman to the man. And then here's what it says in Genesis chapter 2, verses 24 and 25. For this reason, a man shall leave his father and his mother and shall be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. And the man and his wife were both naked, but they were not ashamed. That's the passage. Doesn't that sound like a great model for marriage? Go for it. Enjoy. Thanks for checking out Relationshots. No, I think there's 4 things that we see in this passage. I'm going to break down each one briefly, but here's the 4 aspects of a healthy start and navigation of marriage. The first one we see in here is severance. The next one is permanence. The third one is unity, and the fourth one's intimacy. Severance, permanence, unity, intimacy. Let's break those down. Number 1 is severance. It says, for this reason, a man shall leave his mother and father. There's a severing there of that relationship. Now, back in these times, you pretty well stayed with your family until you got married. Nowadays, I realize sometimes you go to college, you get a roommate, you move out, you do all these kind of things. But the idea is for a healthy marriage to exist, there's got to be a severance from the family of origin. And that comes in a few ways. Number 1 is physical. And if you wonder about this, just ask any of the couples you may know who decided to save money by living with one of their parents for the first year of their marriage. Ask them how it went. They'll let you know the importance of a physical severing or separation of that relationship. You've got to get out on your own. So whether it's a severance from your family, whether it's severing from roommates you've lived with, whatever it may be, when you get married, there's got to be a physical move where husband and wife are now on their own. That's a healthy way to begin a relationship. So there's a physical severance. There's also an emotional severance. This is where a lot of people get stuck. Listen, when you get married, the things you used to go to your mom for, your dad for, your grandma for, your friends for, you now need to go to your spouse for. That's what creates the emotional connection. You do not any longer need to talk to grandma, mama, daddy, auntie, sister 4 times a day. That's not healthy. And you say, oh, but we're super close. But guess what? All of the little conversations, the little seemingly meaningless conversations that you have with people throughout the day are emotional connections and conversations that you need to be having with your spouse. So if you're having them with your mom or your dad or your sister or your friends, you no longer need to have them with your spouse. So you will actually be hurting the emotional intimacy and connection in your marriage. There needs to be an emotional severance where the primary person you're having those conversations with is now your spouse. It doesn't mean you don't have any outside friends. That's isolation. That's not healthy. But the majority of your conversations emotionally need to be with your spouse to create that connection. If you're a person of faith, there's also a spiritual severing that needs to take place where you're developing your own faith now, and as a couple, you're growing in that faith. So the first step for marriage success based on this verse is really a severance, a leaving. The next step is what we call permanence. And it says, and shall be joined to his wife. The idea behind this is that now your role as husband or wife becomes primary over every other role in your life. This marriage relationship is now more important than every other relationship in your life. So you do have other roles. Maybe you're a daughter or a son. Maybe you're a brother or sister. Maybe you're an uncle or aunt or a niece or nephew. Those are all roles you play. But all of those roles become secondary to your primary role of either husband or wife. And you've got to go into this relationship with a mindset that this relationship is for life. That's a covenant mindset. This relationship is for life. Too many people go, my family has got me for life. We'll wait and see on this relationship. That's where you get phrases like blood is thicker than water and all the other crap. Listen, the reality is when you get married, this is supposed to be for life, and you've got to go into that marriage with a permanence mindset that says this is now primary, all those other ones are secondary, so I'm going to set healthy boundaries around my marriage to determine how I interact with friends and family, because the permanence of this relationship is more important than the permanence of any other relationship you have. The third key based in these verses is unity. And it says, and they will become one flesh. That's what we're all looking for in marriage, is this one flesh idea where the two of you are getting on the same page and you're unified around the most important things in your relationship. So you should have a set of core values that drives your relationship and who you want to be. Probably need a vision, some goals, things that you can rally around whenever there's difficult decisions. And every time you make a decision, you're not making an individual unilateral decision anymore. You're making a group decision. We're deciding, we're discussing our decisions, and we're weighing our decisions against the core values, goals, and vision that we have agreed upon. This is what helps maintain unity in the relationship, and we're protecting it from outside family, outside friends, and saying we are going to guard our unity at all costs. That even means with the kids, because the kids are there to try to disunify you so they can get their own way. That's why they ask mommy, and when mommy says no, they go try to ask daddy because they want their way. They don't care about your unity, and they'll do whatever they need to do to get what they want, even at the cost of your unity. You guys need to be on the same page with this thing called unity. And the fourth key based on this passage is actually found in the next verse, verse 25, where it says, and the man and woman were naked and not ashamed. Now that is the ultimate definition or description of the intimacy I think we all want in our relationships. Completely naked, there's no shame, no embarrassment, nothing to hide. They feel completely comfortable. Imagine that in your marriage, a marriage where you feel completely protected, where you feel completely known and cared for, where you can be completely vulnerable without fear of rejection or criticism or judgment, where you could let the person see the deepest, darkest issues that you have with no fear that they would love you less, but actually the result would be they would love you more for the sharing of it. The kind of relationship where you have nothing ever to hide, no shame, no embarrassment that you need to hide from your spouse, but the kind of place where you find the intimacy that you're always after. But you have to be consistent in that area. What are you doing to date each other? How often are you caring for each other? Do you know how to love each other? All of these things will determine what level of intimacy you have. So in this passage, we see these four keys of severance, permanence, unity, and intimacy. Now the question is, do you have that in your relationship? And practically, how do you live that out? So I've got 4 questions for you to help evaluate whether this is actually a reality in your relationship. Question number 1. Do you have healthy boundaries when it comes to family and in-laws to make sure your marriage has properly detached from your family? So do in-laws and family and friends continually cause problems in a relationship because you've not yet set boundaries? where in-laws come over and act like they own the place, or they stop by whenever they want, or they rearrange their kitchen with little concern for you, or they override you with how you parent? Do you have properly boundaries that have shown a healthy severance from them, where you still have a relationship with them, but they no longer have the authority in your life and in your marriage that they used to have? That's question number one. Question number two is, are you prioritizing your role as husband or wife and your marriage above all other relationships? That's the permanence question. Listen, is this your primary relationship? Do you have your spouse's back before your family and friends? Have you prioritized this? Is this where you're putting most of your intentional time and effort because this is your priority? You have to ask yourself that question. Question number three, have you identified a set of core values and goals for your marriage to maintain and protect your unity? Listen, if you don't have goals or a set of core values, you're missing the guardrails that will help determine where you go and what you do. For instance, a couple of the core values in our marriage, one is faith, because that's one of the most important to, and faith has a practical application, which says be part of a local church, which says tithe of your money, which says be part of a small group, which says use your gifts to serve others. Those are all aspects of our faith, so they help determine the decisions that we make with our time and our money, because the core value. Another one is family. We value being around extended family, so that's where we spend our holidays, and that has cost to it, and that has time cost to it. We have to get on a plane. We have to spend money. We have to calendar for it. We have to use vacation time. Your goals or your core values will impact your calendar and your cash. So just remember that. If you're wondering what your core values are, look where you're spending your time and your money. But as a couple, you need to have a set of core values that keeps the guardrails to keep you from getting too far off track. And the fourth question is, what do you intentionally do in your marriage to grow your emotional, physical, spiritual, and recreational intimacy as a couple? So if you want great intimacy, it comes not from chemistry, but from intentionality. It doesn't just happen organically. You schedule it, you plan it, you intentionally do it. What are you doing daily, weekly to grow your emotional intimacy, having conversations, your spiritual intimacy? What are you doing to strengthen that? Your physical or sexual intimacy? Or do you have an active sex life? And if not, what are you doing about it? Your recreational intimacy, the things you do together, the fun times, the dinners out, the going to concerts, the travel. What are the things you do together to create the intimacy and kind of relationship that you want? If you don't have a plan, I promise you, your intimacy will take a backseat to the business of the relationship, paying bills, raising kids, just getting stuff done. That will not be a relationship that you enjoy. So there's 4 keys out of this whole leave and cleave idea for marital success, and 4 questions you can use to evaluate where you're at in these areas. So, well, here's what I'd love to hear in the comment section below. Maybe you can drop some of the intentional things you do to make sure that you're firing on all cylinders in these areas. How are you applying the areas of intimacy and unity and permanence and severance so that we can all grow from one another? If you need a free guide to intimacy to help you in that area, use the link below. If you need any other resources, would love to help you in your relationship, you can find all of those below. And then I'll see you right back here next time on Relationshots.